Welcome back to Books and Stuff Podcast. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Zach.
And this week we've got a special guest with us, and we're going to let him introduce himself.
All right, hey guys, I'm Tony. I run Instagram, Tony's Horror Corner. I've been doing that for I think 6 years now. So, and it's
Nice.
just kind of become a fun hobby of mine. Yeah.
Nice. What made you want to get started on Bookstagram?
Mainly because I was trying to just keep my Instagram stuff out of my normal life friends feeds.
Yeah.
I was just starting to post a bunch of books, and I was like, they don't really care about this. I should just move it and make it its own thing.
Nice. Well, congrats on almost 10,000 followers. That's pretty awesome.
Thank you. Yeah.
Have you hit it
When I
already?
started, I definitely wasn't expecting this. No, I think I still have less than 100 to go. I'm close.
Well, if you haven't followed him yet,
Yeah.
please give him a follow.
There you go.
Thank you.
All right, so I guess we'll get into the questions. If you guys didn't know, Zach and Tony are both massive Stephen King fans, so this is going to be very much so a Stephen King episode. So I guess the first question I'll ask you guys is, what got you into Stephen King? For example, like, was it a specific person, or did you just happen upon one of his movies, or one of his books, or something like that? So I guess let's start with Tony, and then we'll go with Zach.
I mean, when growing up, I watched a few of the movies with my parents, and then I guess I really just started reading. I started reading Carrie, like spring of my senior year of high school, just because I was kind of on a kick where I was reading books about like kids with powers and stuff like that.
Oh,
And
cool.
then, like, I kind of put it down, but a year later, I picked up The Shining after I was recovering from surgery. And in doing so, I just was like, I need something to do because I'm stuck at home. I can't do anything. My mom had gotten me Dr. Sleep for Christmas, and I was like, well, I can't read that until I read The Shining. So I read The
Yeah.
Shining, and I kind of got lost in the Overlook, like with the Torrances. So that helped me kind of get away. And then since then, it's just been a binge fest. So.
Nice. Did you have a certain order that you like wanted to try and read them, or were you just picking up random ones at random times?
I was picking up random ones really until I hit until I finally picked up Gunslinger, and then I read all of like the
Yeah.
8 core Dark Tower books like in a row.
Nice. What about you?
Well, when I was younger up in Glen, Wisconsin, we'd always go and visit my great-grandma all the time. And she always had a VHS of The Shining. And so every time we'd go up there, I'd watch it nonstop. I'd watch it like 3 times a day probably. And one day my dad finally was like, why don't you read the darn book? Like, stop watching the movie and like read. Because back then I like was not a heavy reader. Like, I would like just go to school,
Yeah.
do the stuff, hardly read the books. And then finally he's like, just read the book. And I actually ended up getting a couple copies, but never read it. And I would start a bunch of his books and just like never really finish all the way through. And then finally a couple years ago, I finally read The Long Walk. And I was like, maybe this guy's actually kind of good at writing.
Yeah.
And so
I
I was
love
like,
The
all
Long
right,
Walk.
well, let me start reading his stuff. And then I started reading them. And so I would say technically it's a combination. I'd say the movies, and then my dad basically telling me to start reading. So
Nice. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the easiest question to start with would be, which Stephen King book is your all-time favorite? And then we can work through all my questions after that. So, you want to go first, Tony?
Sure. Yeah, I love The Shining's my favorite. I mean, I think for a while when I started reading his stuff, it was Pet Cemetery was, just because I think it's so bleak, but it's just so well written and it's terrifying in like what it kind of stands for. But The Shining, after I read it a second time, and then now I've read it a third time recently, it's like kind of solidified itself as being just my number one because it is. There's so much to it that I think kind of gets overlooked when people read it for the first time, and it's just
Yeah.
really deep. And there's every little piece kind of means something, and I think that's kind of what sticks it as like the number one spot for me.
What would round out like your top three?
The Shining, Pet Cemetery, and then I love The Stand. I'm like building myself up to reread that one soon because it is just such a beast. But it again, I love the how intricate it is and just how messed up a lot of the stuff in that book gets.
Yep. What are your top three?
Well, my number one is the same as Tony's, The Shining. When I did my reread of The Shining for Zoctober, I was like, it was just so good. I also reread the Pet Cemetery, and that, because I had wanted to do a shakeup with my top three, and so I reread two of them. I was going to do it, but then I backed out of it. I backed out of it last minute and changed it to something else because I didn't really want to like do the top three. So as of right now, The Shining is number one. Pet Cemetery is number two. I am pretty much the same reason as Tony said. It's just so well written. It's so creepy, and it's just a really like eerie book. And I would say It would be number three for me. I do got to go through and reread that one again, but It is.
I did that over the summer, and it was wild.
Did you end up liking it more the second time?
Like that book is just. I mean, I pretty much liked it about the same. I think I have it just outside of my top 10 for just because there's a few things that are a little too much for me, but it's still an amazing book, and it's incredible just how much he put into it. And I love the way that he takes historical parts like from Maine's history and uses them in the book and kind of twists them to make them work for his story.
Totally. So I guess the next question I have would be, what's a King book that you wish would get a sequel? You want to go first?
I mean, I have two. I would like to see like It. I would like to see them have a sequel. Like, I know they went through the whole process of like, I mean, I guess I don't really want to spoil the book, but the thing at the end of the book where the book ended, and not spoiling it. I would like to see some sort of sequel or something like that. Like maybe Pennywise wasn't the only one that landed on Earth, and maybe there's another one somewhere else, or something like that. And the other one I would say is Firestarter. I would just like to see what happened with Charlie, and see her grown up and in the future. I'd like to see something like that happen.
Nice.
Yeah, Firestarter was going to be one of mine too, and I think that was the biggest thing with. I don't know if you read The Institute yet, but when I read that, I was actually very upset that it didn't tie into Firestarter. I was like expecting that to happen, and it didn't, and that kind of killed it for me. I was angry they didn't do that. Of all the times he connects books, he didn't. There was a meatball, and he just did take it. And then with I think Pet Cemetery could be cool if he touched on what happened to Ellie afterward, because she definitely had some sort of shining ability. It'd be kind of interesting to touch on that and see if just have her maybe return to the house. And
that's a good point, because Danielle had even asked me like, what are some books you think that I like maybe couldn't get one? And she was like, what about Pet Cemetery? It doesn't seem like there could be like something with that. I wasn't even thinking of Ellie at the time. So that's a good point. What happened to her, after everything that happened with, the rest of the family. What happened with Ellie in the future?
Yeah, and I mean that one of his best endings ever. So
Oh yeah.
All right. Let's go to what book which of his books has the best, is your favorite adaptation for TV or movie? Maybe this could go two ways. Maybe the one that you think, because a lot of people like adaptations that follow so closely with the books, but I know Zach's favorite adaptation doesn't follow closely with the books, so maybe you could answer both or something like that. And I guess since I started with Zach, we'll just go with him.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously the one that doesn't follow the book is The Shining. That's kind of just a given at this
Yeah.
point. I would say one that follows. I'm kind of torn between two. I would say The Green Mile or The Shawshank Redemption. I feel like both of those are just like done so well, and they follow so close to both stories. And The Green Mile to me is another book I think is. I mean, I guess this would kind of answer a question future down the road here. That I think it's kind of underrated. I feel like not a lot of people really talk about it because it's not like horror king. It's no, I don't know if you'd really consider it like a fantasy book, but there's definitely some kind of like glimpses of like a like fantasy-ish type thing with John Coffey's powers and stuff like that, and I think it was depicted pretty darn well on the movie screen. So.
Well, yeah, I haven't read any King books, but I've seen a majority of the adaptations just because he watches them all the time. And The Green Mile, like, it had me crying so hard. Like, that's such a sad movie.
Oh yeah, I can't. I've watched it
so
so many times, and it still like tears at your heartstrings.
Oh yeah,
For
it
sure.
still gets me. It's like I know it's happening, and then it's just like, oh my god, it's happening.
So it follows closely with the books, too?
Oh yeah, I honestly almost
It's
like a
like pretty much spot on.
It,
Oh,
it,
nice.
it's like a little too close, actually.
I think it's a little. I think it's a little. I think it's almost a little better because they like cut out because the way he wrote the books was with it being serialized, he had to kind of like like restart it every time to like get you caught up because it's like you weren't supposed to have read it in a month. Was like how that was like supposed to be. So like the way it's written for how it was released makes sense, but if you read it all together, it's annoying because you just get like a little mini recap or you get like parts where he's back at the old folks' home. And I think the way the movie did it, where you only get like that in like tiny pieces at the beginning and the end, is like just so great because you don't have to like lose momentum with the story.
Yeah. Well, and I think, I mean, we've read articles about, like, what King has said about his adaptations and stuff, and I think that going off of yours before we get to Tony's, doesn't he say, like, The Shining is one of his least favorite, and Green Mile, I think he said is, like, in his top, like, 3 or one of his favorites for sure, right?
Yeah, he hates Kubrick's adaptation of The Shining. The way he always like phrases his was hot and Kubrick's was cold because obviously the overlook burns in his and the movie it freezes. So I mean,
He calls Kubrick's adaptation like a Cadillac without an engine because there's like no substance to it. Like it's just kind of, well, like his was very, I think, deep and methodical. Like Kubrick's is kind of just like, poof, like in your face. Like here's what's gonna happen.
Did
yeah.
you like it, though?
I'm not a huge. I mean, I liked it when I first saw it before I read the book, and then I read the
Okay.
book and it kind of killed it for me. Because I think King just there is just so much, and not saying that Kubrick didn't put any effort into his movie. His movie is there's definitely a lot going on there that I just didn't enjoy as much as most people do because I think it kind of is like to me it feels like a husk of King's book, like just an empty shell where like there's just so much more to the novel than there is to the movie for me. But it's still like I understand why it's so well loved and why it's so highly regarded. It just doesn't hit for me. But my favorite one that, oddly enough, one of my favorites that doesn't follow the book very well, but it was still a great movie, was Doctor Sleep, because I think Flanagan did such a good job of touching all 3 like pieces of work that he had to connect to make this movie work. Because The Shining, there's people that like me that are hardcore for the book, and then there's other people that are hardcore for the movie that maybe haven't even read the book. So he had to take parts from the book and the movie and then tie in the Doctor Sleep book. So I think he did a really good job of working all 3 into making a pretty decent movie. And Ewan McGregor's
Yeah.
awesome.
That was one.
Yeah, Ewan McGregor, he's the one who makes it.
Yeah,
I mean, it was a really good movie.
Yeah, that was one I also watched without knowing anything. For me, as like a total outsider, I thought it like started off a little slow, but like once it got to like, I guess like the meat and potatoes of the movie, it was a really good movie. And I think
Yeah.
they casted everyone
Yeah,
like perfectly.
Yeah, it was very well. Very well cast, very well made, and I also am a huge Flanagan fan, so that helps me.
I mean, if you ask me,
I
he
just
was
I like the
dealt.
way he does his ghosts.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, he was dealt. I feel like he had a very tough task because just like how you said, like
For sure.
he had to appease to like King, the Kubrick fans, the Doctor Sleep. I mean, he had so many people that like he needed to like try and keep in line and like make it work, and he honestly he made
Yeah.
it work. You know, I thought it
Yeah,
was a
that's what's
really
I
good.
think he did. That one for me is the best that doesn't follow because he had so much that he had to like work with. And he
Hmm.
did it in my opinion. And we finally got the shining ending we deserved,
Nice.
which I was happy about.
Um, nice. So,
What's the one for you that follows closest, or were you agreeing with me on Green Mile?
Closest, I think I'd have to agree with either Green Mile, but I also think Shawshank and then Stand by Me or The Body both deserve to be
Those are
put in
literally
that
my top three.
category as well. Because yeah, because they're pretty much spot on. There's like maybe one or two things that you cut out, and like that's just being super nitpicky. Like, and at that point, it's necessary for a film or the way they did it. Like, I think it
Well,
works, and I
is
think
I
that the one
they're
that
all really good.
I like watched In and Out with you? It was really long.
which one?
Stand by Me.
That was the one with the kids in the train, and they're going to find a body.
Oh, maybe it's not.
Yeah, no, you.
Was there a different The Stand? Stand
Shawshank
by
is a
Me
little
isn't The Stand.
longer. But
It. I don't. You were in and out with a couple of them. The Stand is the one that's like 6 hours long. The
Oh,
one with
I'm thinking
Gary.
of a different
The
thing
one with
then.
Gary Sinise and all the
Okay.
and them. Yeah.
All right. Never mind.
I also will
Um,
stand by the older Stand was way better than the new one.
I like haven't even watched the new one. It like just doesn't look good to me.
It's
Like
it
I'm
was terrible.
in all honesty, if we're gonna be on this topic, I'm gonna say the older Pet Cemetery was far much better than the newer Pet Cemetery that came out,
Oh, the new
and
one was terrible.
I'm honestly a little anxious for Firestarter. So
oh
like
wait, that's going to be my next
Yeah.
question.
okay, then I'll shut up then.
Okay. Well, so staying with we'll stick with movies and then we'll go back to the books. So I guess the first question I have is, what book do you wish would get an adaptation? And then I'll do my follow up after that. So you want to take it?
Would get an adaptation. I mean, I'll say we're not including like readaptations.
No, like the first time.
First time. God, I just wish I could like use the Dark Tower, but that really crappy movie was made. I would.
I thought you said The Long Walk, but
Oh yeah,
they are making
The
an
Long Walk is
adaptation,
in the
aren't they?
works, but
Yeah.
I would definitely like to see The Long Walk. That'd be an intriguing movie.
I mean, you could do. What are the ones that you just read? Were there adaptations for both of those? Dead
Under
Zone.
Under the Dome had a TV series. The Tommyknockers had a really crappy '90s movie or something like that, or TV miniseries.
No, the Dead Zone. Does that have one?
The Dead
Yeah.
Zone has one. That's the one with
okay.
Christopher
It has
Walken.
two.
Yeah, they had a TV show
Yeah, then there's
for
a
it.
TV series for that too. I never saw a
Um,
TV show.
No, I was good with Christopher Walken.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd probably say The Long Walk. That'd probably be my top choice.
And then what about you?
Yeah, that's always usually my answer too. Mainly 'cause I think it can. A lot of people argue that they couldn't see it like translated to film very well, but I think it could. I think it if they do it like the book, if you just follow these kids like walking on the street and being miserable the whole time, like I think it might be a little slow for some people, but I think it'd be cool, and they could definitely make it really dark, and I think that'd be
Yeah,
a
I
fun
think
one.
it'd be
I
really
hope they do it well. The one that whatever's in the works, I think they do. I hope they do it justice.
Yeah.
Yeah, they for sure are gonna need to.
And then
Another one I
my,
think
go
the
ahead.
regulators. The regulators would be really cool, because I
That would
think
be
it
intriguing.
already feels very cinematic. I think the way it's written already feels like they could easily just put that right onto the script, and it's super wonky and visually like messed up that I think people would just enjoy watching it.
Yeah, that's one of the books I need to reread. That's one of the ones that was towards the bottom for me, and then I read Cell. My God, that was terrible. And
I
that
just
was,
posted about that today.
Oh,
yeah.
good.
I would definitely say I need to reread the Regulators because I didn't read Desperation first, and I feel like I needed to. Because when I read the Regulators, I was like, "What the
Yeah,
hell is going on?" I was just lost, and so
yeah. That's
now
what
that I've read,
I will always argue that Desperation first, then Regulators is like the best way to read those two, and
yeah,
you got to read them back to back.
I for sure did not do that. So that's why I was like, "The hell's going?" Because I was reading the Bachman books first, and so I read
Hmm.
them in order of Bachman, not like fully realizing like, hey, you should probably read Desperation before you read this book. And so I read the
Yeah, I mean,
Regulators, and I was like, what the hell is happening? Like, I'm just so lost.
What did you think of Cell? We haven't been on Instagram yet. So.
I think the first 100 pages or so, probably less than that, are pretty cool. Like the whole beginning of the zombie shit, and then after that, it just gets so bad. Like everything after the airport or whatever is just terrible.
Well, that's what I
You
thought
said the
Or
too,
not
same
even
thing
because
airport.
for
It's
like.
like in the middle
I
of the
was
street.
reading it. I was reading it, and I'm like, wow, like the first like quarter, like third of the book is like actually pretty solid. I don't know why people are bashing this book. And then I got like 3/4 of the way done, and I was like, holy crap, I don't want to finish this. This is awful.
Yeah, it just gets so bad. And everything after that just doesn't make sense. Like he tries tying in all this weird stuff and none of it works and it's just strange. And the movie's even worse. The movie was terrible.
I haven't. And the thing is, like, you
With
have like
John
two
Cusack and
A-list
Samuel
people too.
Jackson.
Yeah, it's like you got two
Yeah.
like A-list actors, and you get like a crappy movie.
And it was so poorly made too. Like they definitely had a really low budget. Like it wasn't even. I don't even think it went to theater. I think it was like some random
Like straight to
like B
DVD.
movie. So they somehow got those two in. Yeah,
Oh
I can't
gosh.
believe I suffered through it. It's like an hour. It's like an hour. It's only like an hour and like 10 minutes too. Like it's super short, but it was just dumb.
Maybe a sequel to Cell would be okay. It's got to follow it up.
Or like, or maybe that
Yeah, with
would be
everyone
like
still just
the
like
book you want to
suffering.
rewrite or something.
Wait, it's like the Holly Gibney book he's going to be writing soon. Like, I feel like nobody really likes the character, but like he's like one of the only people who does. And so it's like,
Yeah, he's stuck on
Well,
her.
yeah.
That's for sure.
yeah,
Well, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Out of like all the books that have either come out this year or have been announced, like Holly Gibney, like, what are your thoughts on those? Like, have you liked? What were the two that have come out so far?
Gwendy's final task has come out, and then Fairy Tale
Yeah,
comes out September, October.
Oh, okay. Are you excited about that one?
yeah. I'm intrigued for Fairy Tale. I think because his fantasy stuff for me at least is kind of hit or miss, and I've been pretty adamant on the fact that I think he, in his old age, should pretty much just leave the Dark Tower alone, because I think it was when he finished it up and or even like went through the keyhole was a little bit extra that we didn't necessarily need, but that was at least well written. Like it was pretty cool. Um, Beyond everything he's done that's touched the tower beyond that has been stupid, in my opinion. That doesn't it like didn't need to happen. It felt forced. It didn't, and it doesn't feel the same. And I think he should just leave it alone. And I'm afraid Fairy Tail's gonna go too far into it. That's gonna touch on the tower too much, and it definitely doesn't need to. I hope he makes it stay on its own, but who knows? Gwendy, I didn't really enjoy. So
I would say as a whole series, it probably was not my favorite series. Obviously, the second one was just written by Chismar. It didn't have anything really with King
mhm.
involved. And you could definitely see the difference between the first two books, I think, and I really didn't like Magic Feather. I was secretly
No,
hoping at
I
the
mean, and
end of
then
Final I was hoping for at the end of Final Task, like we'd get uh, like uh, like a Roland like cameo, like the gunslinger would show up at like the old
yeah,
folk home and like talk to the guy, and I was like, oh man, this is like a missed opportunity, especially if they're mentioning the Dark Tower, like throw him in there or something.
yeah. I kept like waiting for something that would at least make that all those references like mean something. I felt like it just didn't. Obviously, like the button box as a whole throughout the whole series was intended to be tied to the tower. Like that was definitely their goal. But I liked that it was way more subtle in the first two than or first one really, because it's not really in the second one at all. But in the first one, like it was just kind of a mini piece of it, and then they tried to make it a bigger thing in this third book, and it just didn't really work because it didn't make sense. Yeah, that was it was like I was trying to explain it to my friend who he hasn't really read any King. He's watched a few of the movies, and it's like my roommate, so he like sees that I'm clearly very into it. So he was like asking me about the book, and I tried explaining it to him on the car ride home from work last night, and I was like, you know what? Like me describing this book just sounds really silly. Like it just doesn't. It just seems kind of like lifeless. Like I don't understand. Like let me just go out to space and shoot everything out there. Like what the fuck is that? I don't know. It just feels really random. It doesn't feel like something that he would do. And I don't know. I hope Fairy Tail is at least somewhat revitalizing for his career.
I mean, a lot of people.
Because I'm not really excited for Holly.
No, I'm not excited for her either. But I'm thinking with Fairy Tail, a lot of people have said that it looks like it's going to have some references to like the Eyes of the Dragon, which to me that book is another book
which I think would
like,
work.
Well, yeah, that's another thing. That book, I feel like it gets bashed because it's like directed towards children or something like that, and it's like it's actually not the worst book that he's written. It's not bad. It's kind of like the middle of the road.
No, it actually has some pretty dark moments too.
Oh yeah,
for sure. All right. Well,
and that one just wasn't. I like again, like the fantasy isn't always my cup of tea. So Eye of the Dragon just kind of didn't fully hit for me, but I didn't hate it by any means.
Yeah, it was like in the middle of the pack, like you said, for you, right?
Yeah, it's middle of the road, like 3.5 stars.
Very nice. All right. Well, let's take a turn back to. I guess we kind of already did back to books, and then so Zach has a BookTube channel, and so some of the next questions I have, he always gets asked. So I guess we'll have him answer and you again. So one of the biggest questions that he gets asked is like, what's the book you would recommend to start with for King? Like, he gets asked that probably several times a week. And so what's the answer that you always go with?
I'm blanking right now. I actually don't remember.
You always say The Long Walk because that's where you started.
Oh, well, yeah. If I would say, I started with Bachman, and I wasn't disappointed. But Tony's point here is accurate with the regulators. Like, if you're going to do them, but skip the regulators until you read Desperation. Like, that's... And I also would not start with Rage, just because that's, like...
No.
That's already a book that's, like, on the fence of, like... It gets criticism. It's like a touchy subject. So, like, I probably wouldn't start with Rage. I'd probably skip that to begin with. Kind of get more used to King and his writing style, and then go back to Rage. That's what I did. So, I mean, unless you're into that kind of thing with Rage, then go for it.
Well, I feel like Bachman books are a safe place to start, too, because I know a lot of people... I get why people ask that, because his books are so intertwined, and so... It's hard to find a book that is just like has no references to like any other book, and so you're not like spoiled or like not reading them out of order or something. So like I get why a lot of people ask that, and so I feel like where you started actually like worked. But I know the easy answer too is Carrie, because that is what the first book.
Yeah, like chronologically start with Carrie and then work your way downtown.
Yeah, but what would you say?
Yeah. I usually say either Carrie or The Shining, because they were my first two, but I also think that they're so early on in his career that it kind of works if you're trying to get into him. And they both have some obviously pretty dark and creepy elements, but I don't think either one of them has anything that's like super over the top. Like I think it is a lot for people, not even because of its page count. There's just a lot of stuff in there that's pretty heavy. And even like The Stand, again, that's pretty intimidating, like just looking at that book. So yeah, I tend to have people wait on those two. And I think Salem's Lot is a decent start, but it is a little slower and something that takes like some patience when you're starting it, and I think that's better for if you've read a few of his books already. But I do think The Long Walk is great. That one, and then, but that's the only Bachman book I think I'd ever have anybody start his stuff with, because I think the other ones are just so different, and I think it pays off to know that they are different from his like normal style.
Well, and The Long Walk, wasn't that the only one that was a 5-star for you?
Out
The
of
other ones
Bachman.
were just kind of like...
The next closest, I think, was Thinner. Thinner is another one I think is actually pretty decent. Those would probably
Yeah, I
be...
just there's like a few things in Thinner that I was just like kind of rolled my eyes at, but I think that was like the whole point of the book was to be kind of campy and like kind of outrageous. And that
That's
was the
kinda
last
what
one
I
he
felt.
wrote before he got caught. So I actually really liked
Nice.
Running Man on a reread. I really enjoyed the Running Man.
Yeah, I gotta reread the Bachman. That's another thing I need to do, because another book I feel like people don't really talk about, like Roadwork, like it gets bashed because it's kind of like a weird book, but it's actually not too bad. At least that's my thought or opinion. It's
Yeah, I
not like the
reread it and
worst.
I definitely didn't hate it as much as the first read, but I still didn't really enjoy it because I just was like, why? Like, all this is really stupid. Like, he could have just moved, just take the money and like get a new house. This took extreme measures.
Yeah, he kind of went to the extreme. I could see that. Yeah.
It's funny. All right. Who would you say is your favorite King character?
Um,
um,
I love Eddie Dean. Eddie from
yeah.
the Dark Tower series I love him. He's just awesome. I think I like him so much because King's use of him is very intentional in that he is a way for the readers to connect to the series. He is like the physical embodiment of like us reading these books, because he throughout the series, even at the very end, he still is like, what the hell am I doing here? Like, what is all this stuff? But even though he has like grown obviously into this new world, but he helps kind of make it more real for us, and he's
Yeah.
just entertaining as hell.
Yeah, he's definitely more entertaining.
He's probably in like your top 5.
He's for sure in my top 3.
Oh, okay.
I mean, obviously before the hotel took him over, I like Jack Torrance as a character. I
I do
I
too.
just like him. I know. I mean, I know it's like you don't really want to like say like you like the villain, but like at the same time you gotta like feel for him, because it's like he didn't want to do what he did. So like the hotel literally like took control of him. So like he was in and that's a fair point that people make, is in the movie with Kubrick, Torrance, Jack Nicholson like portrays Jack as just like a brute a-hole like to start off, whereas in the book he's a loving,
Yeah.
caring guy, and like he gets built up to like, unfortunately this event happens to him, and so it's like it's kind of sad at the end of the day to me
Oh, I
with
totally
how it ended with
totally
him.
agree. I've like done deep dives and argued with plenty of people about that, because I think I don't think Jack, he's obviously not a perfect person. He definitely has some bad moments and he has some bad characteristics. But I think that's what makes him real, is like no one's really perfect. Like, and the book gives him an arc. Like, he starts out, like, you see him work through things and try to be good, but then the hotel just pokes at the bad parts of him and accentuates those and turns him into this kind of monster. But even at the very end, like, he wouldn't have done what he did with Danny in the hallway if his actual stuff wasn't there.
Well, yeah, exactly.
And then the movie doesn't do that at all. It's just, he just is an asshole the whole time.
Yeah, no, he's just purely an ass. That's why in Doctor Sleep there's like no like resurgence of his character, because it's just like
Right.
Jack's gone. Like there's no Jack Torrance left anymore. It's literally just the hotel, which is what I thought with the when they show him like his. I think the kid who plays E.T. ends up playing him in Doctor Sleep, and like
Oh, yeah,
people
yeah,
said
at
like
the
that
bar.
reincarnation of Jack is like the bad version. Like the good version of him is just gone. Like he's gone. And so like that incarnation of
Yeah.
him when Danny sees him in the bar, is that's like the evil one. Like there's no coping with him. There's no talking to him. Like he's just drink this and
He's
come to
gone.
the dark side.
Yeah. I also
So I
love
mean, I know,
Nick Andros. He just goes through so much and becomes such an important person, even with his like disabilities.
oh yeah, John Coffey is another character I like. John Coffey and Judd Crandall.
Hmm.
Of like the three J's:
I
Jack
love Judd.
Torrance, John Coffey, and Judd Crandall.
Nice.
Judd's
All
awesome.
right. So
That was another part that angered
another.
me about the new movie.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
the
Yeah, I
new
think
Judd.
they just didn't. The whole like relationship with Lewis and Judd was very poorly done in the new movie. I think.
Oh yeah, no, it was definitely a lot better in the 1980 version. Definitely a lot better.
So, which book would you say is like your hidden gem book, or a book that you really enjoy that doesn't get talked about as much, or maybe
Oh,
gets bashed a lot, or something along those lines? That's another question that Zach gets asked a lot too, and he always has the same answer.
Yeah, I
you can go
usually
ahead,
always
Zach,
say
because I'm going to talk
Christine.
for a bit.
I usually say Christine. It's a book that I have had in my top 5, and then I read The Dead Zone, and I've had it. You know, it's. I don't see it ever leaving my top 10. It's just such a good book. It's well written. The friendship between Arnie and Dennis is just. It's so good, and then just like watching Arnie just turn for the worse because of this car that's kind of starting to like take control of his life, and it honestly is a really good book. I mean, the other one I have that's somewhat of a hidden gem that everybody hates is Dreamcatcher. It's everybody hates that book. Like
Don't you?
I can't find one person who likes it.
Not anymore. I did until I reread it. A reread
So
helped it a lot.
well, yeah, like I've only read it once, but like the movie I thought was I actually enjoyed the movie before I never read the book, but when I watched the movie, I love Thomas Jane as an actor. He's like really good. And then
Yeah, he's great.
the guy who plays Beeve, the guy who played My Name is Earl, I can't think of his name.
Yeah, and
But
Timothy Oliphant's in that too. They had a good cast.
oh yeah, it was a really good cast. Then you got the caterpillar eye
The shit
Morgan.
weasels.
Yeah, no, Morgan Freeman with his freaking caterpillar
Oh yeah, yeah.
eyebrows. Like
Uh,
those things were massive.
Well, yeah, Christine is definitely the book that, because you're on Bookstagram and BookTube, and we like never see anyone talk about it on YouTube. Definitely.
Oh yeah, no, nobody really ever talks about Christine. I like I don't really get why. Like I've been wait
this
because
is a good movie too.
well yeah the movie's good too. It's not like it's like a bad movie.
Yeah,
I mean maybe I'd like to see a sequel for the movie because obviously you see Christine twitch at the end, but you know.
I think they're remaking it.
Oh, really? That wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, I think I heard somebody got the rights and they're redoing it.
Well, I feel like they need to do that for a lot of King movies. I'm like
Just
I feel like they're working through it.
well yeah to me like I feel like besides The Stand, like the hardest one I feel like that would need to be made is The Shining. Like honestly, like
yeah.
Salem's Lot, I
Did
feel
you
like
hear
they could
I think
redo that one.
they are actually they're for Salem's Lot. They're like they started filming last summer. In my uncle's like town where he lives in Massachusetts, he was sending me pictures of how they like changed storefronts to make it look like stuff from Salem's Lot. It was cool.
Oh, that's cool.
Nice.
Um,
But no, I feel like The Shining is just going to be a hard one to do because, you know, obviously with the TV miniseries, King wanted to get like everything into it. I feel like it'd have to be made like how it was, where it's in 2 separate chapters. But like, I feel like that'd be kind of like
Yeah, it had to be
weird to
2
do with
parts.
like a movie.
2 parts, big budget, and you'd have to have somebody that like actually cares and like wants to make it right.
Well,
But I
yeah.
think like just because the Kubrick's has such a big following, it would be really tough to even try.
Well, yeah, that's where I feel like it's kind of like a touchy thing because it's like, yeah, it's King's book, but at the same time, like Kubrick's made an adaptation that has gotten its own like kind of like following, and I'm in both groups, but it's just like I would like to see like an adaptation done like right. That's in a sense where it's like more to the book, but it's not like a TV miniseries or
Yeah.
something like that.
So what would you say for your answer?
So my hidden gems, I agree about Christine. I think that one definitely is a hidden gem. I've read it, I think, 3 times now, and I think it's really cool. It's really well done. I think the little middle section could be trimmed a little bit, but that's really the only thing that bothers me. I love the descriptions of the car, like reforming itself, were always so cool to me. Like every time I read those, I was just like, "Oh, this is awesome!" Like it's so cool. Dead Zone's another one that I think it is definitely, I think, more well loved than Christine or the one I'm going to mention next. I feel like 90% of people that read Dead Zone like really enjoy it, but it just doesn't seem to be talked about enough and or appreciated enough, because I think it is a really really good book. It's really well written. It is a little bleak, a little depressing, but it's pretty beautiful in like what he is able to do with it, and all the political stuff is way better than the stuff he's touched on recently. Like when he's tried to go political with recent books, it's just so forced and heavy handed. While like the Dead Zone, I think, was really tasteful. It was really well done, and it was like,
That's
and then
exactly
just kind of the desperation involved at the end of that is great.
Well, yeah, that's
that's
the way
ex-
how I kind of viewed it too.
that's
Because
exactly what he said
to
for
me, like,
Billy Summers.
well, yeah, to me, the political thing with Dead Zone
Yeah,
is it was a fictional political character, and the thing with like the more recent stuff is like he just keeps making references to a certain person who was in office, and it's like I feel like he just needs to
who knows
drop
who
it.
that could be?
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
it's like I wonder who he's writing about. Like I feel like he just needs to drop it. Like just stop. Like
Yeah.
we get it, you don't like the guy, but you don't need to mention it in every book that you've written since he was in office. like stop.
Yep.
That's my hard
It's
take
just
on
too
his
much,
writing
and
with political.
it's stupid. And then the other one I really like that I absolutely adore it, that I don't think is mentioned enough, is The Dark Half. And I think that book is way more important than people give it credit for, because it was written right in the midst of him like going sober, and it was also kind of reactionary in terms of him getting outed as Bachman, and then he very intentionally like rewrote his own experience of being his pseudonym being really revealed, and turned it into a fictional story. And then he switches throughout the book. You can kind of see a little bit of stylistic changes, and you see some Bachman thrown in there. You see his own stuff, and I think it's just really, really cool, like the way he does it, and it's pretty awesome. And there's another good movie that doesn't get talked about either.
Well, yeah, that's a book you haven't read, right?
No, I started it once and then I put a pause on it because I would think I made a change to start reading one of his other books. But it's definitely one that I need to go back to, and it actually was. We were contemplating a book to read for April, like for like a TBR
Oh yeah.
video or something like that, or like I think I'm going to be off working one of these upcoming days, and we're trying to figure out which King book I was going to read. And we're between that, rereading The Regulators, and rereading Misery, and I'm going to end up probably rereading Misery. But I
Misery's
definitely need
fun.
to hit The Dark Half up again. That one is just
Yeah.
a lot of people. I feel like it gets
It gets
bashed.
really brutal too.
Oh yeah, I can't wait for that one.
Well, the other book that you
Yeah.
started and haven't gone back to, well, there's two,
There's
is
like four.
Insomnia and 1122. What are your
Oh.
thoughts on those? Because he started those like literally 2 years ago. He's clearly getting choked up about it. He started him like 2 years ago and have still like he like hasn't gone back to them yet. I feel like 1122 is hard though because isn't that really like historical fiction like heavy?
Yeah. So 1122, those two are very different books. 1122 is definitely way more historical fiction. You'd get that little sci-fi kind of time travel aspect, but that one definitely leans heavily on like the history and the politics of the 50s and 60s, which again, that's another example of him doing politics very well. But it is uh, there's definitely a big section of that book that kind of drags, and you just are like, all right, he can we move it along a little bit? But it is really good. It's actually a really beautiful book. Like, especially, it's one of his better endings. Um, and the story itself is just really interesting, and it's a fun little like thought piece. Like, what would you do if you go back in time, and like, would you stop the Kennedy assassination, or what would happen because of that? Like, what would be the trickle down of saving him? So it is really interesting to think about, and then to kind of see what he did with it is really cool. But it is definitely one you have to like devote some time to it, because it's not a quick read.
Yeah.
And then
What did you
Insomnia,
think?
I love Insomnia. Like, if you like The Dark Tower and you'll love Insomnia. I mean, it's pretty much a Dark Tower novel without having Dark Tower in the name. And then it also has a ton of Easter eggs because it takes place in Derry. So it's really fun to read it for that reason alone. But it is really important for the Dark Tower stuff too. Like, it touches on a lot of things that he didn't do in the books, really. So it's really interesting to like read it as like a Dark Tower side piece. And that's another one that I think is one of his more beautiful books. The ending always makes me cry. Like, it's incredibly emotional too. And it's just visually very cool. He has a lot of interesting descriptions in there that, like, before I read it the first time, I was reading just like I would go through this list, and this guy would rate all these King books and have little mini blurbs about them. And he kept saying that Insomnia, like, a lot of the descriptions felt like an acid trip. And I was like, I've never done acid, but like reading the book, I was like, if that's what it is, it seems kind of fun. Like,
That's how the Tommyknockers was for
So-
me. That book was a trip and a
oh,
half.
yeah.
Oh my God.
It really was. I think it's fun, but it's wild.
Oh yeah,
Tommyknockers and Insomnia are crazy for different reasons.
Yeah, no, very. I mean, I haven't read Insomnia, but Tommyknockers is definitely that's one of those books. I feel like if you
Well,
were to take acid,
He wrote
read it,
that
you'd
one in
be
the
on-
throes of like a coke binge.
Yeah, he was. I think he was like just getting over something, whatever it was.
His
And-
wife, they had an intervention with him in the middle of him writing it, so he was like fully coked out like the whole time. And you can kind of see it. It definitely goes on these like random ass tangents. You're like,
Yeah, and the random Coke machine that comes to life and starts killing people. That's
that's
exciting.
the best part.
Okay. Next question. Is there any King book or cover? You both are collectors of King, obviously. Everyone's seen both of your collections. Is there a book that you're like on the hunt for or like lusting after a specific cover? Obviously, the easy answer is Rage, but I know there's a couple book covers or books that you're wanting to. Do you want to take it?
So I was collecting the I don't know which side of your body it's on, but like your bottom right where it's like the rainbow on the top and the black like block on the bottom, like those Signet versions. I'm missing a Salem's Lot, and that's like the only one I'm missing out of that set, and I'm always hunting for it. And like the problem is the color of it is the same as Dolores Claiborne, I think. And so it's like every time I see Dolores, I'm like, damn it, you're not Salem's Lot.
You get all excited. Yeah, I think Pet
The
Cemetery
other
is the
one
only
I
one
would
I'm
say is
missing out of that set.
Yeah. I would say a hardcover UK edition of It. I feel like I just like want one of those because like it looks
Yeah, they look cool.
It looks nice. But yeah, obviously Rage. I mean, I like UK or American. It honestly doesn't matter. I just like want to
Yeah,
find one.
just to have one.
Well, yeah, it's like there's like always like those really like old Signet like paperbacks at like half price books near us, and like I'm always just waiting for someone to like muck up and just like put one in there for $1.99.
It's just like not gonna happen, but yeah.
Yeah.
Wishful
So it's
thinking.
like who the hell
I
is
know
this
somebody-
guy?
I forget who it was, but somebody on Instagram or Bookstagram actually told me they found one in the kids section of a Goodwill. And I was like, you are incredibly lucky. You just got like a $500 book for 50 cents. Like,
500.
Yeah.
That's generous.
I feel like
Yeah.
Goodwill is gonna be where you would get the fuck ups because like some random old lady stocking shelves at Goodwill isn't gonna know what that is, but like half price books, like they're gonna know what that is.
Yeah, they're gonna do the research, but
So
like
you
a
got to go to
Goodwill,
like the random like church. You got to go to like a church, what am I talking about? Like thrift store or
a
something.
church
Like,
rummage sale.
yeah.
Oh yeah, that'd be good. That'd be a good place for a rage. A church or in the
Well,
kids section of a book area.
I feel like you won't
which is not
find
a
much
great place
King at a
for
church
people.
rummage sale.
You never know.
Yeah, maybe the
Yeah.
pastor's trying to turn a new leaf.
All right. What about you?
Obviously, I think I have a first edition of The Running Man in U.S., and then I have first editions of Long Walk, Roadwork, and Running Man in U.K. So obviously, completing those original 4 Bachmans would be really cool in the U.S. and U.K. So for U.K., I only need Rage. U.S., I need Long Walk, Rage, and Roadwork. And then for other than that, I Carrie, Salem's Lot, and Night Shift are the only 3 of like the original of all of his books I don't have a first edition for.
Nice.
So
That's
that'd be fun
impressive.
to get those just to finally have all that. Like
Do you collect
I got
the
everything else.
like
I just need those ones.
the like Cemetery Dance or like isn't PS Publishing? Who's that?
P.S. I think is
Do you
like
collect all
Yeah,
those?
there's Cemetery Dance and PS Publishing are the 2 like bigger ones, and then Suntup and um, what else? There's Subterranean Press has The Shining, which is really cool. I have that one.
Nice.
But yeah, I have all the Cemetery Dance except for what am I missing? I think I'm just need the artist edition for Carrie to have like all of those.
Well, I guess since we're almost at an hour, we'll end it off with do you have any big goals in regards to King or anything to do with King or your bookstagram, or would you ever consider writing a book or doing something more than just your bookstagram?
I think meeting King at some point, getting him to sign a book like to me would be really cool at some point. Obviously, I don't know when that's ever going to happen, but that would be fun. That's like goal number 1. And then I guess like in terms of me writing a book, that'd be fun. The only thing I ever write, I write articles occasionally, but I think it'd be cool, but I have no idea what I'd write about or if it would even turn out any good because I don't know how my fiction writing is. And then I don't know. In terms of my books, I guess I just have to. I'll still end up picking some up here and there, but I think my collection's probably at a standstill until newer things are released.
Nice. The problem with writing, like he wants to write a book, but he's so heavily influenced by Stephen King. It's hard to like come up with your own idea without it almost being too close to
Yeah,
something that's already been written by him. He's written over what 70 books or something, so it's hard to like not be
yeah, it's
influenced by
hard
him
not.
because he's read so much. So that's the problem he's having right now.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I mean, I'm currently like 80 pages into a book or like 100 pages into a book. Obviously, it needs to be like proofread because I can't spell. But it's I mean, I'm enjoying writing it. I'm kind of at like a standstill because some of King's earlier works, he works in like rock and roll and like all that kind of stuff, and like I like started
Hmm.
writing in like the Beatles, and I'm like, this is like getting way too close. Like I feel like I can't be doing this, and so I stopped, and I'm like kind of taking a break from it, and I'm like, all right, I need to like start thinking of something else. And I've been getting like short story ideas in my head, but like I don't want to like I don't know get away from the main book I'm trying to write. But I mean, yeah, maybe I'll do a collection of some sort
So it's a
first.
work in
Yeah,
progress.
I mean, it's a work in progress. I have some stuff
Yeah,
written. I've got ideas in my head, but nothing has been solidified 100%.
you got
Well,
time.
yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. There's time. He didn't write his first book until he was about, or like published Carrie until he's about in his mid-20s, I
He
think.
was almost 30 and he was 28. Yeah.
So I mean, I've got time. I can get one written before he finishes.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you, Tony, for coming on the podcast and talking all things King with us.
Yeah, thanks for
Yes,
having me.
thank you for joining. We've had 2 of these so far. We got a few more, and
Well,
you were the main king one. So
yeah,
this,
we knew that a lot of the other episodes of guests we've had were people from like YouTube, and they're not like very Stephen King focused people, and so we're like, we have to have someone who's Stephen King, so Zach can
Yeah.
like have his person to talk with. So, yeah, this was perfect. Thank you so much for coming on, and
yeah, we'll
uh,
maybe have to have an episode 2
yeah,
because King is such
Yeah, I'm
a
down.
very large subject. So I mean, there's definitely more questions we can come up with
Yeah,
and
we
deep
touched
dive
on
into more
maybe a
stuff.
quarter of it, you know?
yeah.
Yeah,
We only got a little slice of the
I was
pie.
gonna
There's still
say,
more.
even a quarter's
Yeah.
generous. We maybe hit like a tenth or something.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, you can find Tony on Instagram at Tony's Horror Corner, and let's get him to 10,000 subscribers. I'm thinking YouTube now. 10,000 followers, and yeah, follow us, Books and Stuff Podcast on Instagram, and leave a rating and review. And we will see you all in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
Hi.